Welcome to Right Conversations with Sha Nacino. Our goal is to inspire you to live a happy and meaningful life, make your dreams come true, and bless the world. We'll also give you tips and strategies on how you can live your purpose and make your passion your profession. Sha is a best-selling author, a sought-after inspirational speaker, a Toastmaster, and the founder of the 90-Day Book Writing Challenge. And now, your host, Sha Nacino.
Hi everyone, this is Sha Nacino and welcome to session number 1 of Right Conversations podcast. I've always wanted to do a podcast for maybe a year now, but I've been very busy with a lot of projects, speaking and writing, and I wasn't really able to make time to produce this podcast. But finally, the podcast is here and I'm so excited to share this loved project with you. I also think that this month is the perfect time to launch the podcast, October, because October is my birth month. So happy birthday to our podcast. Okay, I'd like to introduce myself first, especially if you're listening to me for the very first time. Again, my name is Sha Nacino. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and I'm also a book writing coach. I was an employee for 9 years, and I could still remember in my first year as an employee, I got buried in credit card debts. And at that time, I was sick and tired of my job. I wanted to quit my job, but I couldn't because, number 1, I had no savings. I was buried in debts. Number 2, I asked myself, if I will resign, what will I do? Where will I go? I didn't know the answer. I felt like a lost sheep who had no choice but to go to work every single day because I needed money to pay for the bills, pay for the rent, etc. And I could still remember that time. It was 11 a.m. I was about 1 year in the company where I worked for. I looked at my wallet and I only had 50 pesos. The salary will arrive in 3 days and I had no more money in my ATM account. I was ashamed to borrow money from my office mates. So I called up my papa, who was my father, who was based in the province, and I told my papa, "Pa, can I borrow 1,000 pesos?" My father, very, very loving, he sent me money. Before 12 noon, he sent me money via LBC. From my office in Ayala Avenue, I walked to Buendia. I was wearing a nice top, a pencil-cut skirt, high heels. I had no umbrella. And from Buendia, I walked for another 1 kilometer just to look for LBC, just to get my money so I could buy myself a decent lunch. That was one of my rock-bottom moments. And at that time, I was so hungry. The hunger, walking on an empty stomach for about 2 kilometers under the heat of the sun, that was very painful physically. But you know what? The physical pain was nothing compared to what I felt inside. I felt stripped of my dignity. And it's all because I didn't learn how to manage my money. And at that time, while I was walking under the heat of the sun, I made some visualizations. I told God, "Lord, I want to reach a point wherein at any given time, I could buy myself a decent lunch." And I also told God, I want to reach a point wherein at any given day, I could tell myself, "Sha, today, just relax, read your favorite book or watch your favorite movie. Or next week, do you want to work in Boracay? Then go work in Boracay. Next week, you want to work in Baguio? Go. Next week, you want to work in Bohol? Go." So at that time, those were just words and dreams. And I did one thing that changed my life forever. I invested in my self-education. I invested in my financial education. I started to read books on money. I started to attend seminars, and I started to seek mentors. I was applying everything that I was learning, and after 3 years, finally, I was able to zero out my credit card debts. I was also able to save and invest. Along the process of investing in my education, I also discovered my purpose in life. And when I learned how important financial literacy is, I wanted to share it to as many young professionals as possible. So I started with my friends. And during dinner, during colloquial conversations, I would tell my friends, you know what? I think you should zero out your credit card debts, because if you don't zero out your debts, you would be draining money at the rate of 42% annually. And even if you're saving money at the rate of 2% annually, you are draining money at the rate of 40%. And apply the power of compounding. So that's how I would talk to my friends, and I realized that my friends would shy away from the conversation. So money, why? Because money is such a sensitive issue. And there's this burning desire for me to share the message, but I had no listener. So I started to write down everything that I wanted to share without any concrete plans on what to do with what I was writing. In one of the seminars that I attended, it was a whole day seminar. The speaker said, if you want to spread a message and make some money, you record an album, you write a book, and blah, 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 blah. So imagine it was a whole day seminar, and the speaker said a lot of things, but all I was hearing was, Sha, write a book, write a book, write a book. And I was so uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable because, number one, I was not a writer. I didn't know how to write a book. I didn't know anything about writing a book. I didn't know anyone from the publishing industry, and no one knew me. In fact, in our office, I was a wallflower. So I just wanted to discard the idea of writing a book because there were so many hesitations, there were so many obstacles. But I felt it was God telling me, Sha, you need to write a book because you need to share the message on financial literacy to as many yappies as possible. You need to write a book because this is not for you. This is for the people that will be blessed by your book. I had the burning message to share. I had the passion to share the message. So I heeded God's call and I inched my way to writing my first book. It took me 3 years to write and publish my first book because at that time there were no courses yet or seminars on how to write a book. So it took me 3 years, and in the process of writing my first book, I fell in love with writing. And in the process also of writing my first book, I discovered that there is a systematic way of writing a book. And now one of my passions is to teach people how to write books through the 90-day book writing challenge. Anyway, after 9 years of being employed in a bank, I finally quit my job. Now I pursue my passions full-time. I write books, I give talks, I organize seminars. I also run my own startup company. So that's my background. And now I am so passionate to share or to communicate happiness, inspiration, and meaning to as many people as possible through my books, blogs, seminars, talks, courses, and now through the podcast. So maybe you're asking me, Sha, why did you start a podcast? Well, there are several reasons why I started a podcast. Oh, by the way, I have a blog, seminarphilippines.com. I also write articles for the Truly Rich Club newsletters. I also write books. I do online seminars. I do live seminars. I do talks for companies, organizations, schools, etc. So these are the platforms where I communicate my message or the message that I want to share. And I realized that a podcast is another way to communicate that message. It's another platform to communicate that message. So why did I start a podcast? Well, number one, I love listening to podcasts while I'm driving my car, while I'm preparing breakfast, or while I'm cleaning my room. Listening to podcasts has helped me become a better and more positive person. And I also want to share the benefits of listening to podcasts with you. Next, I also realized that different people have different learning modalities. For example, some learn well by reading, others learn well by watching videos, others learn well by listening. So this podcast is my way of addressing those who learn more by listening. My podcast is another way for me to give value and another way for me to share my wisdom, my experiences, my insights, the lessons I learned with you. And personally, I am doing this podcast because I want to further improve my public speaking skills. Okay? And whenever I do podcast, I don't write everything I say word for word. I just have an outline, a guide, and then I speak from the heart. So, like right now, imagine that I'm talking to you and we're having this conversation. So maybe you're asking, Sha, why did you name it Right Conversations? Well, WRITE, right, is a metaphor for someone's passion. In my case, writing is my passion, and I really encourage you to find your passion and make it your profession. Right, WRITE, is a wordplay for right, RIGHT. RIGHT means we'll talk about things that really matter. Right, WRITE, is also an acronym for W, winning, R, relevant, I, inspiring, T, timely, and E, encouraging. And lastly, conversations, because I believe that this podcast is a conversation between you and me. In fact, I believe that everything I do is a conversation. When I write books, it's a conversation between me and the reader. When I give talks, it's a conversation between me and the participant. So everything is a conversation. This podcast is a conversation between you and me. And what are the topics that we're going to cover in Right Conversations podcast? We'll talk about relationships, your relationship with God, with your family, yourself also, with your friends, with your colleagues, etc. And then we'll talk about health, because I believe that health is wealth. Even if you have all the money that you want to earn, if you're not healthy, you won't have the energy and the vitality to enjoy it, and enjoy it with the people that you love. Next, we'll talk about money, business, and career. Okay, so we'll talk about money management. We'll talk about how to grow your business or how to succeed in your career. Next, we'll talk about personal development. So anything that will help you improve your skills, or anything that will help you grow as a person. Next, we'll talk about significance, or how to give back, how to serve others, how to give value. So again, our 5 major topics would be relationships, health, money, business, and career, personal development, and significance. So as of this recording, the podcasts I listen to the most are the podcast of Pat Flynn, Michael Hyatt, and Joel Osteen. I love their podcast episodes, and I listen to their podcasts every single day. Regarding the format of our podcast, on some episodes, I will be the sole speaker. On some episodes, I will interview inspiring people. So, what is the mission of Right Conversations podcast? Our goal here in Right Conversations is to inspire you to live a happy and meaningful life, make your dreams come true, and bless the world. We'll also give you tips and strategies on how you can live your purpose and make your passion your profession. Okay, so I'm so excited to officially welcome you to Right Conversations podcast. Alright, so watch out for our next episode. I wish you success and happiness. God bless.
Thank you for listening to Right Conversations with Sha Nacino. If you need more inspiration to pursue your dreams, visit seminarphilippines.com.